All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Touchdown Glass podcast. I am your host, Michael V. Jones. You know, here at the Touchdown Glass, we are keeping it real. No crazy hot takes or agendas, just good old fashioned football talk the way you like it. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Well, we got a lot going on, right? Game one of the World Series tomorrow, the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, kind of a cool matchup with two of the biggest media markets in the country. East Coast, West Coast, great traditions there. Should be a lot of fun. A lot of great players, um, and some of the biggest stars in Major League Baseball playing in that game. So for Major League Baseball, I don't think they could ask for a better matchup. As a Mets fan, I mean, I could, but speaking objectively, college football. How about Georgia knocking off number one undefeated Texas? So the chaos continues, and hey, we got 1 week till Halloween, right? So a lot of people are celebrating their Hallow weekend right now. Going to be doing some costume parties and fun stuff. So have fun, be safe. But we all know why we're here. We're here to talk NFL, and let's start off with what happened in Week 7. So we start on Thursday Night Football, where the Denver Broncos defeated the New Orleans Saints 33-10. Sean Payton returns to New Orleans. I mean, really, they just took the air out of the Superdome crowd, which is really hard to do. And now the Saints, after that hot start at 2-0, I mean, their offense was on fire. They've dropped five in a row. So they're at 2-5. Denver exceeding expectations at 4-3, and I think you have to give credit to Sean Payton and this coaching staff. All right, Sunday, merry old London, Wembley Stadium, where the Jacksonville Jaguars defeated the New England Patriots 32-16. So Tank Bigsby ran for 118 yards on the ground and two touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, solid game, 15 of 20, 193 yards and a touchdown pass to Brian Thomas Jr. Patriots, after starting 1-0, they are now 1-6, so they've dropped six in a row. And again, this is a rebuilding year. I guess good news if you're a Patriots fan. Drake May's looking pretty solid. He's doing some good things. So yeah, you have that maybe going for you for the future, but not really much to look forward to this year other than watching his progress. Uh, Jags, I believe this is after starting 0-4, they've won two of their last three. So we'll see. Maybe they can get back in the swing of things. All right, the Buffalo Bills demolished the Tennessee Titans 34-10. So after being down 10, they scored 34 unanswered points. Newly acquired Amari Cooper, he caught a touchdown, and Mason Rudolph started for the Titans, but it's pretty much the same result. So Bills at 5-2, Titans go to 1-5. I think this one was the best game of the week. The Detroit Lions defeated the Minnesota Vikings 31-29. A back and forth game, a couple of touchdowns by Jahmyr Gibbs, but in the end, it came down to Detroit's rookie kicker, Jake Bates, making the game winning field goal. So the Lions hand the Vikings their first loss and take first place in the NFC North. And this NFC North is tight with four really good teams. So it's going to be fun to see how this thing winds up. All right, the Seattle Seahawks go into Atlanta and a dominant performance, beat the Falcons 34-14. It was offense, it was defense. Geno Smith made it a point to get the ball to DK Metcalf, and boy, did it pay off. Metcalf had a big game, did leave with a knee injury. Looks like it's not going to be anything severe, but uh, a much needed win for Seattle after they starting 3-0, dropped three in a row. Both of these teams are 4-3. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals defeated the Cleveland Browns 21-14, and Charlie Jones for the Bengals ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. Nick Chubb back for the Browns, he got in the end zone. But the big story out of this one, Deshaun Watson hurt, and we will talk about that later. Burrow, he hit Chase and Higgins for TDs. So Bengals at 3-4 feel like they got some things going and maybe can get back in this thing. Uh, Browns, it just gets uglier and uglier at 1-6, and we'll talk more about that later. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the New York Football Giants 28-3, and the story of this one is Saquon Barkley's return to New York. 17 carries, 176 yards, 10.4 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Drew Lock ended up replacing Daniel Jones, so there's some irony in there, right? Giants choosing to pay Daniel Jones and not Saquon Barkley, and Barkley's game back to New York, Daniel Jones is getting benched. Now, there was some things about Barkley saying that some of the fans, burning jerseys, something like that. Look, I'll just say this. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But if it had been Barkley, who was an Eagle, then became a Giant and went back to Philly, it would have been 10 times worse. And I think Eagles fans would agree. All right, so the Eagles 4-2, Giants dropped to 2-5. All right, the Indianapolis Colts defeated the Miami Dolphins 16-10. So this was a pretty underwhelming game, yawn of a game, but the Colts win and they're 4-3. This doesn't seem like it. Dolphins dropped to 2-4. So Huntley went out for the Dolphins. Tim Boyle came in for the Dolphins. Anthony Richardson, his performance left something to be desired. So it wasn't a lot of good quarterback play in this one. Hey, but the Colts, they get it done on the road. All right, I don't even know if it was on the road or at home, but whatever. All right, the Green Bay Packers defeated the Houston Texans 24-22. So another great game between two really good teams. Both teams now are 5-2 as a result of this game. Jordan Love, he did throw a couple interceptions, but he threw 3 touchdown passes, and including one to Josh Jacobs, which I believe this is his first receiving touchdown of his career. Joe Mixon had a big game on the ground for the Texans. C.J. Stroud only completed 10 passes for 86 yards, so a little uncharacteristic of him. But the Texans did take the lead late in the fourth quarter, but Love with a nice drive leading the Packers down the field, setting up a game-winning field goal for newly acquired kicker Brandon McManus. All right, the Washington Commanders destroyed the Carolina Panthers 40-7, and this one was pretty much over in the beginning when Andy Dalton threw a interception to Dante Fowler, and he took it all the way. You knew that game was done. Now, the story of this one, Jaden Daniels hurt. Again, some of the concerns that I had for Jaden Daniels early on was, him taking some of those hits. Looked like that finally came home to roost. It's a rib injury. Those usually aren't too serious, but he could miss some time. But Marcus Mariota came in, performed great, and Washington, as always, was able to run the football. I mean, that's kind of where their bread is buttered. So, Commanders 5-2, top the NFC East, and Carolina Panthers 1-6. That's the kind of season they're having. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the San Francisco 49ers 28-18, a rematch of last season's Super Bowl. Didn't really have that feel, right? Because Kansas City, although they're winning, they have their issues. And San Francisco's kind of been a shell of themselves, right? We've seen, I thought, okay, the 49ers beat the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football last week. Okay, here we go. Here the Niners come. And the injuries just continue to pile up. Deebo Samuel had to leave the game early, came down with pneumonia. Brandon Ayuk tearing his ACL. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions in this one. Of course, there's some kind of story about Shanahan having a conversation with him singled out at his locker after the game. I don't know if that's just the media, something more than it really is, but whatever. You think what you want there. Patrick Mahomes, people are getting on him for not putting up the big numbers, right? 8 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. But if you watch the tape, he's still Patrick Mahomes. When they need a play, He's there to put on the cape and save the day. He had a big run, I think like 33 yards, to set the Chiefs up with a first and goal. Got down to fourth and goal, and he ran it in. And this was like Madden hit stick stuff. He ran over Malik Mustafa, the San Francisco 49ers defender. I mean, just ran through him. And it's just like, what can this guy not do? So the Chiefs are 6-0. The Niners are 3-4 with a matchup with the Dallas Cowboys coming up. So we'll kind of talk more about what that means when we get to that game. All right, Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeat the New York Jets in convincing fashion, 37-15. And the story of this one, Russell Wilson coming in, looked a little rusty at first, but then we saw some old Russ, those teardrop passes, touch on the ball, and George Pickens with some highlight catches. The Jets were up in this one 15-6. A lot of people thought, okay, here come the Jets. Now they got Devontae Adams, who caught a few balls and made some nice plays, but really wasn't a factor in this game. And yeah, Jets were up 15-6, and the final score was 37-15. So will this Russell Wilson thing continue? Will they go back to Justin Fields? I don't know. But for that night, that was a great move by Mike Tomlin, who a lot of people criticized him for it, including me. But hey, that's why he's the head coach, and that's why he's had the success he's had over the years. Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. So we had a doubleheader where the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 41-31. Tampa, they couldn't close the deal early. They had a chance to really get a stranglehold on this game. They were up 10-0, and I believe it was maybe 10-7 or 10-0. I can't remember, but Baker Mayfield, they're down in goal territory. Look like they're about to get another touchdown. He throws interception to Marlon Humphrey, who had picked off Baker Mayfield twice, and the Ravens just made them pay. 34 unanswered points. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes. Rashad Bateman had a huge game. Derrick Henry, another huge game. Both caught touchdown passes. And, of course, the injuries happened for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, Mike Evans, hamstring. That's probably not season ending, but that's going to be, he could miss several weeks. And then Chris Godwin likely out for the year. Some controversy there. We'll talk about that. All right. And then the final game, the Arizona Cardinals defeat the Los Angeles Chargers 17-15. Cardinals go to 3-4. Chargers 3-3. Kyler Murray ran one, threw one, but for touchdowns. But really what it came down to in this game was the Chargers had a couple key fumbles, right? Intercepting a pass, looked like they're going to set up their offense for a score. That was fumbled and recovered by Arizona. Another one, Justin Herbert threw to the receiver. He was going for a touch, looked like he was diving for the end zone, go for a touchdown, fumbles the ball out of the end zone, touchback, Arizona ball. Clearly the difference in the game. All right, if I didn't mention the Dallas Cowboys or the Chicago Bears, that's because they were on a bye, and we have no byes coming up this week. So all 32 teams will be in action. So, all right. So I want to follow up on Jerry Jones and what I talked about last week. Him in that the guys at 103, the fan in Dallas, who he does a weekly interview with, got very tense, and that made a lot of noise in the NFL media, right? Well, guess what? Jerry was back on there. They were friendly. They were cordial. He's now saying, had I brought in Derrick Henry, I don't know if he's having a career year. I don't know that he'd be having the success that he's having in Baltimore that he is with us. And he's probably, if we're being technical, he's probably right? It's a better situation when you have a Lamar Jackson in the backfield when he's that kind of running threat. And that's going to just make things even Henry and Jackson are able to feed off each other. And, we think Dak's a pretty good quarterback. All right. I'm saying pretty good, not great. Calm down. He doesn't have that kind of elusiveness and running ability that Lamar Jackson does. So does Henry have as big a season? Probably not. But could he definitely change life in that running game in Dallas? Absolutely. So it's obviously a pretty ignorant statement overall. And that interview on the Fan was friendly and cordial and all that. So any hope that Cowboys fans had, like this is going to set something off to where real change is coming, it's not. Same old, same old. And I now hear that some Cowboy fans are really rooting against the Cowboys, wanting them to do bad. And it's not for draft picks. No, I mean they've just re-signed Dak. There's a couple good quarterbacks in the draft, but it's it's not for draft picks. I mean the draft picks are nice if you're not going to win, right? It has nothing to do with that. They want the Joneses to be humiliated so bad it brings about change. That's what they're rooting for. Now, as a lifelong Cowboy fan, I'll never root against the Cowboys. It just takes the fun out of it for me. All right, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I'm gonna be there rooting for them. It's really not going to make a difference in their performance, but I get why Cowboys fans would like to see something happen to change the landscape of the bigger picture. All right. Well, speaking of unhappy fans, the Cleveland Browns, or maybe they're happy. I don't know. uh, took some criticism. Deshaun Watson, uh, another wrinkle in that situation. An Achilles injury, done for the year. We know he wasn't playing well, clearly not living up to the mammoth of a contract he signed. And the fans, they booed him when he came back, when he came onto the field, and they cheered him uh, when I guess he was being carted off. And they've taken some criticism from the players. Now, you should never cheer an injury. I'll never condone that. But let's give these fans some grace, right? Because they've gotten criticism for cheering for this guy. They've gotten criticism for cheering for this guy after, you know, his off the field behavior, right? Why this one of the big reasons why this guy was hasn't played football in a long time, or went a long stretch without playing football. They got criticized for cheering for him, uh, to do well. Now they get criticized for him cheering him when he's injured, which I agree you shouldn't do. However, we got to look at this again, big picture. Browns fans, okay? This Cleveland Browns haven't won a division title since 1989. 1989, right? And this isn't even um that Browns franchise in a sense, right? Because it's really the Ravens, right? That Browns roster in 95. This is a city that's lost their beloved team, passionate fans that filled that stadium no matter what. The Browns moved to Baltimore in 96, become the Ravens, right? The Browns come back through via expansion. Now all the colors and the records and everything moved over, came along with them, but the wins that were supposed to be theirs, yeah, they went to Baltimore. Ravens have been one of the more successful franchises of the 21st century. The the Cleveland Browns, not so much, right? One playoff win uh, in this century, and it's really if you go back to '89 or after the '89 season, it's been what two playoff wins during that whole stretch. They've seen Bill Belichick come and go to New England and have incredible success. So and the Browns in Cleveland, they're getting a new stadium, right? They're getting a new stadium because these fans will fill that stadium. They're passionate. They've gone through a winless season. They haven't been able to find a quarterback. They found one, and then, it's not working out. They ship him off. It's, they've dealt with it all. So let's give them a little bit of grace. Should they have done it? No. But all things considered, hey, maybe they have some sort of right here. Okay, some sort of right. As far as the Deshaun Watson thing, it just where does it go from here, right? He's still owed all that money. He was kind of losing his athleticism anyway. Now an Achilles injury. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries too. We got to remember that. A lot of injuries. Yeah, where does it go from here? I don't know. I think, it's just Cleveland's going to eat it, cut bait, um, and really just try to rebuild through the draft. And I think we're going to see, there's rumors of Myles Garrett being traded, and maybe they need to do that. Just have a complete fire sale and start over. To the Browns fans, I'm sorry. And I know you've annoyed people sometime, like all fan bases do, but you deserve better. All right. Um, DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Kansas City Chiefs from the Tennessee Titans. So Kansas City needs more offense, right? Rashee Rice is gone for the year. Isaiah Pacheco uh, is not going to be coming back till later, although Kareem Hunt has filled in nicely. What a signing that was to bring him back in. Uh, Bringing in Hopkins, a veteran, he's going to help guys like Xavier Worthy uh, and maybe open things up a little bit for the Chiefs. I'm not sure if he's the DeAndre Hopkins of old, so I don't know if he's like a savior, right? I would feel better had they brought in Adams, which they wouldn't have been able to do from the Raiders, but maybe an Amari Cooper. I would have felt better about that one than I would DeAndre Hopkins, but I think it can help. And who better than an Andy Reid to squeeze blood out of a stone? He'll get the most out of whatever Hopkins has left. So I think it's a solid move. Does it fix their offense? No. This is Kansas City Chiefs team is a defensive team that has a very good offensive coach, a very good quarterback, a solid offensive line, and just kind of adequate weapons. Kelsey's not what he used to be. They have a young guy in Xavier Worthy who's becoming more of a playmaker as we go along, and he's going to get better as the season goes along. But I think this team still contends just because they have a great defense, a great quarterback, a great head coach that can kind of make up for some of those deficiencies. All right, Robert Saleh going to the Green Bay Packers. So the former New York Jets head coach brought in by Matt LaFleur, has a relationship with him to kind of be a fluid, I believe that's what they called it, assistant coach. Uh, this is already a pretty good defense in Green Bay. I think adding Saleh is only going to help that. Kind of funny. People are making more of it than it is because obviously Aaron Rodgers was with the Packers, now with the Jets. Saleh was with the Jets, now with the Packers. I don't really know if there's anything there. It's just kind of fun as fans to paint that story in her head. But I think they brought him in because he's a good football coach, knows defense. It's a move by the Packers that doesn't hurt. All right, I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and some controversy. Obviously, they lose Mike Evans early in the game, hamstring injury, doesn't look good. Obviously, you can recover from those, but you got to get the timetable right. I could see him out for 6 weeks. And that could be big as the Buccaneers have a big game coming up with the Atlanta Falcons that's probably going to, determine, it won't be the end all, but the Falcons have beaten the Bucks once, so maybe it's really going to give the Falcons the upper hand and they win that game. Whereas the Buccaneers win, that gives them hope to have a shot at this division. So it's a huge game, but the controversy is I guess leaving Chris Godwin in that late in the game where there was such a low percentage chance of winning. Like we see this quite a bit. The game it did get completely out of hand. The Buccaneers made it a little close. miracles have happened and strange things have happened on that field in Tampa. I'll never forget that Monday Night Football game where the Buccaneers were beating the Colts. This was probably 20 years ago, and Peyton Manning, uh, I think they were up by 21. The Buccaneers late in the fourth quarter, and Peyton Manning ended up tying the Peyton Manning of the Colts ended up tying the game and winning in overtime. One of the most unbelievable Monday Night Football games there ever was. So fluky, weird things have happened at that field, but I don't know if I would really criticize Todd Bowles here. I mean, this is a former player. He's a good football coach. In hindsight, it's easy to say, it's easy to say, right, that, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that because he got hurt. Guys also want to get their touchdowns, right? Chris Godwin's having a heck of a season. Why wouldn't he want to pile on that? So, if you're leaving Baker Mayfield out there, why wouldn't you leave Chris Godwin out there? So I think it's just an unfortunate situation, and it's a football play. It happens. This wasn't a game that was 40 to nothing in the fourth quarter and everyone's still out there with 2 minutes left to play. It wasn't that. So I definitely will cut Todd Bowles some slack there. All right, I think I've covered the news. I'm sure I missed a story or two, but we can always talk about that next week. All right, well, let's get to week 8 because we got a big matchup tonight with the Minnesota Vikings against the Los Angeles Rams. Not sure. I think I maybe heard Puka Nakua. It's on track to be back. I'm not sure on this one, but the Minnesota Vikings coming off their first loss after being 5-0. They're going to be on the road. It's going to be interesting to see how Sam Darnold and this team respond to a loss. But again, they're playing a Rams team that really hasn't found their way all year, and I like them kind of on. I think this is good for them to have a short week, forget about that game against Detroit, and get back to doing what they do. So I like the Vikings in this one. All right, Sunday's games. We've got the New York Football Jets at the New England Patriots. So I don't see a reason why the Jets won't win. However, if they don't, they're never going to hear the end of it, and it's going to just look. That defense has looked worse and worse each week after it looked really good under Robert Saleh until he got fired. So I don't. It, it, man, I just kind of want to root for the Patriots to hear the headlines, but I think the Jets pull it out in this one. And again, if they don't, yikes. All right, the Green Bay Packers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jaguars have been playing better over the last few games, but the Packers look like they finally found their groove, right? And they got a really good, solid team all the way around. I think they can, with that defense and with their explosiveness, they can survive Jordan Love making a couple turnovers, even on the road against Jacksonville. So I really like Green Bay here. The Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So backs against the wall for the Buccaneers. They got a division rival, the Falcons, coming in who beat them in dramatic fashion earlier this year on, I believe, it was a Thursday night football game. So I think Baker's going to be up for this one. It should be a fun one. It's a shame that you don't have Evans and Godwin in this one because there's a lot of good playmakers on the other side of the ball. But if the Buccaneers can run the football and get something going, maybe make a couple plays on defense. We saw what Seattle was able to do to Atlanta at home last week. Really suffocated that Falcon offense. So I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. I think it'll be a good game, regardless of the fact that Tampa has injuries. All right, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Kind of funny how what I talked about earlier gave it a little history lesson of Cleveland and Baltimore. Yeah, they can start Jameis Winston. That's fine. These Ravens are just on fire. They have too much. That offense is just going to throw too much at that Browns defense. That's pretty good. And that even though the Ravens defense isn't the Ravens defense we're used to, we see guys like Marlon Humphrey making plays every week. And I mean, Jameis may give it a little bit of a boost, but it's not going to be enough. They're not going to be able to compete in a track meet with the Ravens, and that's what could happen. All right, the Tennessee Titans at the Detroit Lions. So we kind of know the state of the Titans. They can't get anything going this year. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback, and the Lions are maybe the class of the NFL right now. I mean, when you look at their uh, last several games, man, who's playing better football than them? Um, yeah, the MVP race. That's one thing I didn't get to. I want to talk about earlier. There's Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff, in my opinion. Maybe you could throw Josh Allen in there. I think those are your top three, and everyone's handing it to Lamar. But Jared Goff is having a magical season right now, and I think it's between him and Lamar. I think it's 1 and 1A. That's how much I think of the season that Goff is having. And why are these three quarterbacks having success? It's because they have running games. And when you have running games, then they can just let they can open it up in the passing game because they're not one dimensional. And you're just seeing all three of these guys, their talent flourish, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So I think Jared Goff makes another case for MVP this week. All right, the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans. I'm kind of interested to see this one because Indy does play it seems like they're playing everybody tough. I don't know if they might make their way back to Joe Flacco. It's kind of hard with the investment they've made in Anthony Richardson with a top 5 pick, but and him being the quarterback of the future. But they are 4-3. I think this could be a pretty good game. I would favor the Texans here. Um, but we'll see if Richardson. Not never going to root for anyone to get hurt, but he does take some bumps. And if Flacco, or if he's having a bad performance, and there's a chance to put Joe Flacco in, it would be kind of cool to see because remember last year Flacco was with the Browns, had that playoff matchup against C.J. Stroud. Not much came of that, but uh, but who knows? Anyway, moving on. Philadelphia Eagles at the Cincinnati Bengals. So we saw what Saquon Barkley did to the New York Giants last week. Now he's going to face a Bengals defense that isn't very good. However, the Eagles defense isn't all world either, and they're going to have a time on their hands with guys like Chase and Higgins and Burrow getting them the ball. And again, though, but the Eagles also have their playmakers on the outside in Smith and Brown. So I think this could be a fun one to watch, a track meet, and it really could come down to who has the ball last. I really do believe that. All right, the Arizona Cardinals at the Miami Dolphins. We'll see if Tua plays. You don't know what you're going to get week to week from Arizona, so it's really a toss-up. You would think maybe the Dolphins at home uh, could handle this one. We'll see if Tua gets in there. That could be the big difference. All right. Buffalo Bills at Seattle Seahawks might come down to whether DK Metcalf can play or not. I do not think he's going to play. And I think without him, it's going to be a little too much for Seattle to pull off on the road against Buffalo. But if he is able to come in and be effective, uh, then this could be one of the better games of the week. I still would favor Buffalo at home. All right, the New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Chargers. Can the Saints get off this losing skid 5 in a row after that great 2-0 start? Well, they're going on the road, doing against a Charger team that really, too, they're kind of like the Cardinals. Remember what I said? You don't know what you're going to get from them week to week. There's been some good things, and there's been some things that have just been underwhelming. Maybe our expectations are a little high. That Harbaugh's there, but they don't quite have all the horses he needs to succeed. You know, uh, uh, we'll see here. I would favor the Chargers. The Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders. So Jaden Daniels probably doesn't play in this one, and that's a shame. That's why they moved it back to 4 o'clock. So you'd get the top 2 rookie quarterbacks, the top 2 picks in the draft facing off against each other. And I know the Commanders look great against the Panthers, but and they're at home. but they're getting the Bears off a bye that have a really good, solid team all the way around, and kind of after a slow start have found their way. So I would lean Chicago in this one, especially if Daniels isn't playing. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. So, yeah, we kind of know what's going on with the Raiders. I don't even think I mentioned the game, the Rams and Raiders, did I? That the Rams defeated the Raiders last week, 20-15. O'Connell hurt, Minshew in. That's yeah, Rams pull it off. But yeah, I think going on the road, even though they're not the Chiefs were expecting, that defense is great, great quarterback, great head coach, great defense coordinator. We'll see if DeAndre Hopkins can be a factor in this, but definitely going to go uh, with with the Chiefs here. All right, the Carolina Panthers at the Denver Broncos. So unfortunately, Andy Dalton was in a car accident with his family. It looks like everyone's okay, but he will not play. Bryce Young will get the start. We'll see what that looks like coming back in. But on the road at Denver against a Broncos team that's really exceeding expectations. Yeah, I'm definitely going Broncos here. All right, Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. All right, big matchup with the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers because, you know, what happens to the losing team? Are they done? I don't know if they're done, but it really doesn't look good. You know, Dallas is coming off a bye. Maybe they have a guy or two back, but San Francisco has clearly had their number. Um, and we know what's going on with the 49ers, all the injuries. I don't know if Deebo Samuel's going to play. Ayuk is done for the year. Um, you know, I think the key for the Niners is to run the football, and because that's seems to be where the Cowboys have really struggled, and the Niners, that's kind of always been something they've been able to go to. Um, and the Cowboys defense hasn't been creating turnovers. That has been a problem for Brock Purdy and the 49ers this year. We'll just kind of see if this bye week makes any difference for Dallas. And then the fact that they're getting a wounded San Francisco team, do they smell blood in the water and can they capitalize? Or is it just more of the mess with the Cowboys and not being able to beat Shanahan and the Niners? And the Niners maybe still have enough to get it done. So it's a very, very intriguing matchup. All right, Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. The New York Football Giants at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we know Russell Wilson's going to get another start. Daniel Jones will be starting for the Giants. Yeah, I think this Pittsburgh defense is just going to be too much for Daniel Jones and that Giants offense. And if they can have even, I think they'll just need a fraction of that great offensive performance they had against the Jets, and the Steelers will handle this one no problem. All right, like I said, no bye weeks. Everybody's playing this week, so enjoy the games, everybody.